What's going on, guys? Back again with another one because we definitely need to talk about this situation today. Ryan Clark has now stepped into the conversation surrounding Jaxson Dart and Abdul Carter, and things are getting louder by the day. Listen to this, because this whole story really started gaining traction a few days ago. That's when Jaxson Dart ended up introducing Donald Trump during one of his conference appearances. And ever since that moment, hold up, the reactions and conversations around it have been non-stop.
Well, I'm honored, I'm pleasured to introduce the 45th and 47th President of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump.
And a lot of people reacted immediately, with plenty of fans showing frustration as soon as the clip started circulating. His teammate, Abdul Carter, also shared his thoughts at first, saying he honestly believed what he saw had to be AI. Now listen to this, because later on, he explained that the two of them had already talked things through behind the scenes. Then we ended up seeing footage surface from practice showing them embracing and seemingly putting the situation behind them. For anybody who missed what happened or didn't catch everything that was said afterward, hold up, let's break it all down and check it out.
No, obviously this was a unique opportunity. Being asked and given the opportunity to introduce the President of the United States, my thinking was pretty simple. In the fact of, I've always loved this country. I have extended family members who have fought in wars. I have two uncles who have retired from the Air Force Academy and served themselves. And I even have a great-grandfather who served as Secretary of Treasury at some point. So the president position has always been a position that I've well respected, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of political party, and my intentions were just that. I also understand in this world, politics can be a sensitive matter, a sensitive topic. I also understand that I am the quarterback of the New York Giants, and that involves a lot of responsibility. It's under a limelight, under a microscope, and there's a lot that comes with that, and it's been something that I've embraced.
So first off, I want to say that some things are bigger than football, and this is one of those things. Jaxson is one of our leaders. He's the face of our franchise. He not only represents himself and what he does, but he represents all of us, and that goes for anybody who wears a Giants uniform. But if he chooses to align himself with a man like President Trump, it's my responsibility, based on what I believe and what I stand on, to not only show my teammates that I'm against that, but to show the world. And that doesn't mean that we have to spread hate. It doesn't mean that me and Jaxson hate each other or we have beef. I sit next to Jaxson every day, every team meeting, we close, we talk. As long as we make sure we got the same goal as a team and our goals align, which they do, and I feel like that's all that matters. So I just want to move past this, and yeah, that's it.
Did Jaxson say he was sorry for doing it?
No, I don't want him to say he's sorry. Like, stand on what you believe in, but it can't be a problem when I stand on what I believe in. And that's all that matters to me. Just as long as we have that understanding, it's all good.
What transpired in the Giants locker room last week is a lesson for every locker room in America. What started with Jaxson Dart's public political statement and was followed by a highly criticized tweet from fellow first rounder Abdul Carter led us exactly where we needed to be. It led us to conversation, it led us to accountability, it led us to understanding. And if we are going to ask people to respect one player's political beliefs, we have to be willing to respect every player's political beliefs. First off, salute to Jaxson Dart for showing the leadership, the awareness, the humility by being willing to have these conversations behind closed doors with his teammates and then issue his own public statement. He could have just been like, F it, I'm the quarterback of the Giants, I support who I support. And I also appreciate Jameis Winston's statement on what the locker room is a microcosm of, on diversity, on togetherness. And I just love it because, hell, it's Jameis. But more than anything, I gained a ton of respect for Abdul Carter. Many current and former players have expressed support for President Trump, but far fewer have publicly expressed opposition. And Abdul's message wasn't so much rooted in politics to me as it was principle. He wasn't searching for apologies. He didn't lead with hate. He was focused on fairness and equality and the right to speak honestly about issues that are extremely important to him. Now, that's not always a comfortable place to be. That's a position that will get you highly criticized in some extremely powerful rooms. And I've been in that part of the room. And that's what makes what Abdul Carter did even more impressive to me. Like earlier in the week, I said that I thought this could have been handled behind closed doors. But Abdul proved to me that I was wrong. Without his tweet, the conversations don't happen. Without his tweet, the statements aren't made. Sometimes discomfort is the price of progress. And other times, tension actually creates resolution. Abdul Carter was right. If we're going to respect one athlete's political stance, we have to respect another's. And that's even if we disagree. But on this, Abdul, and on this point, I agree with you.
So listen to this, because sports and politics intersect in a way that always makes things uncomfortable, right? Sports is supposed to bring people together from completely different backgrounds, right? And now, with the current political climate in this country, you've got situations like Abdul Carter speaking out and Jaxson Dart making his stance known with Donald Trump and his movement, right? And look, he's absolutely entitled to that. Abdul Carter publicly responded to it. Now, he even said things were still cool between them. So let me be real for a second. If I'm Abdul Carter and we're actually tight, maybe I take that private route instead of going public if it's really bothering me like that, especially if we're sitting next to each other every day and calling each other cool. Now, on the flip side, you could argue he did respond publicly. So Abdul Carter said what he said because he probably didn't even expect that move to happen. And at the same time, Jaxson Dart doesn't really owe him advance notice on that. Right, he doesn't owe anyone a heads up like, hey, I'm going up there with Trump and I know you might not like it, because he just doesn't have to do all that. So when I think about it, Abdul Carter also doesn't necessarily owe him any special courtesy either. But here's where I want to slow it down for a second. Agree or disagree with someone, once you start trying to police politics and sports, it almost always turns into a bigger issue than it needed to be. It creates more outside noise around the locker room throughout the entire season. And if these guys ever get into an argument or clips come out of them going back and forth in practice or on the sideline, which is completely normal in sports, people are immediately going to link it back to this moment. And suddenly the situation becomes bigger than it actually is. Things that normally happen in sports every day start getting overanalyzed. If it happens between those two now, it's going to be under a microscope. And that's really the only reason I think Abdul Carter probably should have just reached out privately and asked what's going on, especially if they're actually friends like he says they are, right? So then the question becomes, should Jaxson Dart have even taken that political stance, knowing how sensitive people can be about it? Honestly, I don't know. Because you're the quarterback of the team, you're leading the locker room, so the question is whether that kind of public stance becomes a distraction inside the building. At the same time, he might just be setting his position clearly. And I'm not saying this team is winning a Super Bowl or anything like that, it's just complicated to read, because it could also be him signaling that if they win, he's going to the White House. And maybe he's trying to get ahead of that situation early, because teams and players sometimes feel strongly about that. Some guys don't even want to go to the White House after winning, so maybe he's just being upfront about it ahead of time. And Abdul Carter might be looking at it like, nah, we're not going if we win. And I'm not even saying the Giants are in a position to win it all right now. I'm just saying he could be preparing for a scenario nobody expects. But at the end of the day, policing politics in sports like this is a slippery slope.
On the flip side, imagine if the roles were completely reversed for a second. If Abdul Carter had gone up there and, let's say, introduced Kamala Harris instead, and then Jaxson Dart came online saying, I thought that was AI, listen to this. The reaction would have been completely different depending on which side you're looking at. Because people on one side are quick to defend Jaxson Dart right now, but the same energy would absolutely flip if the situation was reversed. And that's exactly why I don't think anybody really wants to start policing this kind of thing. Now, the bigger question is this: do you even want athletes participating in politics this openly? Because there was a time when this wasn't talked about nearly as much. Back when the internet wasn't this involved, you didn't have instant access to every detail of someone's beliefs. Now, all you have to do is search someone's name and you can find their political stance in seconds. And I think social media and technology have definitely made situations like this way more divisive. On one hand, people say it reveals who someone really is, but on the other hand, you don't actually get the full picture of a person from one moment or one opinion. You can't judge everything about someone based on a single disagreement. And that's where things get tricky, because when you start policing politics in sports, it opens the door for people to label someone based on one stance, even though people are constantly evolving and changing their views over time. We've seen players switch opinions, switch sides, and even completely rethink where they stand publicly. So a lot of the time, it's just people figuring things out as they go. And honestly, that's just the reality of it. At the end of the day, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Catch you next time. Peace.